The forgotten signal, Dr. Elena Vasquez rubbed her tired eyes and stared at the data streaming across her monitors. The Jupiter Deep Space Observatory had been her home for 3 years, and she had grown used to the endless silence of space. Most days brought nothing but cosmic background radiation and the occasional burst from distant pulsars. Tonight felt different. The anomaly first appeared at 2347 station time. A pattern hidden deep within the radio noise, so faint that the automated systems had missed it completely. Elena leaned forward, her coffee growing cold as she isolated the signal. The pattern was artificial, structured, and impossibly old. "Area, run a full-spectrum analysis on this signal," she commanded the station's AI. "Analysis complete, Dr. Vasquez," came the synthetic voice. "The signal shows characteristics of intelligent origin. Estimated age, approximately 200 Earth years. Source direction, Kepler 442 system." Elena's heart raced. Kepler 442 was 127 light-years away. If this signal was truly 200 years old, it meant some civilization had been trying to communicate since Earth's 19th century. She spent the next 4 hours running every test she could think of. The signal was real, continuous, and desperate. Captain Marcus Webb arrived at Elena's workstation as the morning shift began. Webb was a veteran of the Martian colonial wars, tough as asteroid rock but fair to his crew. His weathered face showed concern as he reviewed Elena's findings. "You're telling me this has been broadcasting for 2 centuries?" Webb asked, studying. "The readouts. Not just broadcasting, Captain. Pleading." Elena had spent the night working with Arya to decode the alien language. What they found chilled her to the bone. "It's a distress call. An entire species crying out for help." The translation appeared on the main screen, the words simple but haunting. "We are the Zephyrians of the crystal winds. We have fled across the void for generations, but they follow us still. The void hunters take our worlds, consume our people, and move on like a plague among the stars. We hide on the third world of the yellow star. But we know they will find us. If anyone receives this message, remember us. Remember that we tried to live in peace." Webb was quiet for a long moment. In his years of military service, he had seen plenty of suffering, but this was different. An entire species had been broadcasting their death song for 2 centuries, hoping someone, somewhere, would listen. "How many worlds have they lost?" Webb asked. Elena consulted her notes. "Based on the signal variations, at least 17 planets. The Zephyrians have been running for over 300 years. The Void Hunters seem to hunt civilizations for sport, destroying them slowly to prolong their entertainment. The implications hit Webb like a physical blow. Somewhere in the Kepler system, the descendants of the Zephyrians were probably still hiding, still hoping someone would answer their call. The Void Hunters might still be toying with them, drawing out their destruction. Webb activated the emergency communication array. Within minutes, he was connected to Admiral Patricia Reynolds at Luna Command. Reynolds was known throughout the solar system as someone who made hard decisions quickly and stood by them. "Admiral, we have a first contact situation that requires immediate attention," Webb began, transmitting Elena's data. Reynolds reviewed the information in silence. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of command. "Captain, you realize what you're suggesting? A rescue mission, 127 light-years from home, to help a species we've never met, against an enemy we don't understand?" "Yes, ma'am. And I'm volunteering to lead the advance team. The journey alone would take 18 months using our fastest ships. We'd be committing enormous resources based on a signal that might be centuries out of date." Elena stepped forward. "Admiral, with respect, the signal is still active. It updates in real time. Someone is still alive out there, still hoping." Reynolds considered this. In her 40 years of service, she had learned to trust her instincts. Her instincts told her that humanity had just discovered its purpose among the stars. Earth had spent centuries dreaming of meeting other intelligent life. Now they had found a species that needed help. "I'll need to consult with the Global Defense Council," Reynolds said, "but prepare preliminary mission plans. If we do this, we'll need our best people and our newest technology." News of the alien distress call spread through human space like wildfire. Within 72 hours, every major news network was broadcasting translations of the Zephyrian messages. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Captain Sarah Chen received her promotion to admiral specifically for this mission. At 38, she was young for such responsibility, but her innovative tactics during the asteroid belt conflicts had earned her respect throughout the fleet. She stood in the shipyard orbiting Earth, watching as humanity's greatest technological achievement took shape. The ISS Determination was humanity's first true deep space vessel, powered by an experimental antimatter drive that could push the ship to nearly 20% of light speed. Around it, 15 other ships of various sizes were being fitted for the journey. Supply vessels, medical ships, and 3 heavy cruisers that could serve as escorts or combat vessels if needed. "Admiral," called out Dr. James Mitchell, the mission's chief xenobiologist, "we've made a breakthrough with the Zephyrian language, structure. It appears they communicate partially through harmonic frequencies. Their entire language has musical components." Mitchell was brilliant but eccentric, known for his ability to understand alien psychology through their communication methods. He had volunteered for the mission the moment he heard about the distress call. "What does that tell us about them?" Chen asked. "They're likely a peaceful species. Their language structure suggests cooperation and harmony are fundamental to their thinking. It also means the Void Hunters probably see them as easy prey." Captain Lisa Torres joined them on the observation deck. Torres commanded the Marine detachment assigned to the mission, 200 of humanity's finest soldiers trained for combat in unknown environments. She was shorter than most Marines, but had never lost a battle in her 15-year career. "Any word on what these Void Hunters are capable of?" Torres asked. Mitchell pulled up his analysis. "Based on the Zephyrian descriptions, they're methodical hunters. They prefer to isolate their prey, cut off escape routes, and then attack gradually. They seem to enjoy the psychological aspect of the hunt as much as the physical destruction," Rez smiled grimly. "Then they've never hunted humans before." Preparations continued around the clock. Volunteer crews came from every corner of human space. Scientists eager to make first contact, soldiers ready to protect innocent life, engineers determined to push human technology to its limits. The mission attracted humanity's best and brightest. Engineer Rob Harrison supervised the final systems checks on the Determination. Harrison had designed the ship's defensive systems and the new AI-assisted targeting computers. He was a perfectionist who had never created anything that didn't exceed its design specifications. "All systems are green, Admiral," Harrison reported. "The antimatter drives are stable, life support can handle the 18-month journey, and the new plasma cannons are ready for whatever we might face." Chen nodded, but her mind was on the larger implications of their mission. Humanity was about to announce its presence to the galaxy in a dramatic way. They were traveling further from Earth than any human had ever gone, to fight an enemy they had never seen, for people they had never met. The night before departure, Elena Vasquez stood in the observation lounge of the Determination, looking out at Earth. The blue marble that had given birth to humanity seemed impossibly small and fragile. Tomorrow, they would leave the solar system behind and venture into the true unknown. "Second thoughts?" Captain Webb asked, joining her at the window. "Just wondering if we're doing the right thing," Elena replied. "What if this is a trap? What if the Void Hunters are using the Zephyrians as bait?" Webb considered this. "Then we'll deal with it. But I'd rather risk being fooled by someone asking for help than ignore someone who really needs it." The launch was broadcast throughout human space. Millions watched as the greatest fleet in human history departed for the stars, carrying humanity's hopes and determination across the void. The journey to Kepler 442 would test everything humans thought they knew about themselves. As Earth fell behind them and the stars ahead grew brighter, Admiral Chen addressed her crew over the ship's communication system. "We don't know what we'll find when we reach the Kepler system. We might be too late to help the Zephyrians. We might face enemies beyond our understanding. But we're going anyway, because that's what humans do. We answer the call when someone needs help." The Determination and its escort fleet disappeared into the darkness between stars, carrying humanity's first message to the galaxy. Earth's children would not stand by while innocents suffered. The long journey. 3 months into their journey, through the void, the crew of the Determination had settled into the rhythm of deep space travel. The ship hummed quietly through space at 18% of light speed, its antimatter engines pushing them toward a destination none of them had ever imagined seeing. Admiral Sarah Chen made her daily rounds through the ship, checking on crew, morale, and mission preparations. The psychological challenges of deep space travel were well documented, but nothing had prepared humanity for a journey of this duration. Some crew members struggled with the isolation, while others threw themselves into their work with almost manic intensity. Dr. James Mitchell had transformed the ship's linguistics lab into something resembling organized chaos. Holographic displays showed complex wave patterns and harmonic frequencies as he worked to fully understand the Zephyrian language. His latest discovery had the entire science team excited. "Admiral, you need to see this," Mitchell called out as Chen entered the lab. "We've been monitoring the Zephyrian distress signal throughout our journey, and it's changing." Chen studied the readouts. Changing how? The emotional content is shifting. For the past 2 centuries, the signal carried mostly despair and resignation. But in the last few weeks, there's been something else. Hope. They're starting to hope again. The implications sent chills through Chen's spine. "You think they know we're coming?" "It's possible they've detected our fleet somehow. Or maybe it's just intuition, but something has changed in their broadcasts. They're preparing for the possibility of rescue." This news spread through the fleet, boosting morale just when it was needed most. The crew had been operating on faith that their mission would matter. Now they had evidence that the Zephyrians might still be alive and aware of their approach. Captain Lisa Torres used the renewed energy to intensify combat training. Her Marines practiced boarding procedures, urban warfare, and something entirely new: 3-dimensional combat in zero-gravity environments. If the Void Hunters had never faced humans before, she intended to use that advantage. The enemy's tactics seemed to focus on intimidation and psychological warfare, Torres explained to her senior staff. They isolate their targets, cut off escape routes, and then attack slowly to maximize fear. We're going to do the opposite. Sergeant Major David Kim, Torres's second-in-command, reviewed the tactical plans. Fast, aggressive, unpredictable? Exactly. Humans don't follow their rules. We'll hit them where they don't expect it, when they don't expect it, and with tactics they've never seen before. The Marines trained with an intensity that impressed even the veterans. They knew they might be humanity's first military contact with hostile alien life. The pressure was enormous, but so was their determination to succeed. Meanwhile, engineer Rob Harrison worked with his team to modify the fleet's weapons systems. The plasma cannons were powerful, but Harrison worried they might not be effective against unknown alien armor. His solution was typically human. If you don't know what will work, prepare for everything. "We're installing multiple weapon types on each ship," Harrison explained to Admiral Chen. "Plasma cannons for energy-based attacks, railguns for kinetic impact, and something special I've been working on." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Something special?" Harrison grinned. "Gravity pulse generators. If the Void Hunters use technology we don't understand, maybe physics they can't understand will give us an edge." The months passed slowly but productively. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as the fleet's communications specialist, made another crucial discovery. While monitoring deep space radio transmissions, She detected signals from other star systems along their route. "Admiral, we're not the first victims of the Void Hunters," Vasquez reported grimly. "I'm detecting the remains of distress calls from at least 6 other species. All of them went silent within the last century." The evidence painted a horrifying picture. The Void Hunters weren't just threatening the Zephyrians. They were working their way through this region of the galaxy, systematically destroying every intelligent species they encountered. The Zephyrians might be the last civilization left alive in a radius of hundreds of light years. This revelation changed the nature of their mission. They weren't just rescuing one species, they were potentially stopping a wave of genocide that could eventually reach Earth itself. Captain Webb, now serving as the fleet's strategic coordinator, called a meeting of senior officers. If the Void Hunters are as methodical as we think, they'll eventually expand their hunting grounds. Earth could be next. The weight of this possibility settled over the crew like a heavy blanket. They were no longer just volunteers on a rescue mission. They were humanity's first line of defense against an enemy that destroyed civilizations for entertainment. Training intensified throughout the fleet. Scientists worked around the clock to understand Void Hunter technology based on the scattered evidence from destroyed worlds. Engineers modified every system they could think of. Marines practiced combat scenarios that grew more complex each day. Dr. Mitchell made another breakthrough when he successfully established two-way communication with the Zephyrian signal source. The first real conversation between humans and an alien species was brief but profound. "We hear you, Sky Voices," came the translated response. "You travel far. Why do you come to our dying world?" Mitchell's reply was simple and honest. "Because you asked for help." The silence that followed lasted several minutes. When the Zephyrians responded, their message was filled with an emotion that needed no translation. Gratitude mixed with disbelief. "No one has ever answered. We have called across the void for so long, we had forgotten anyone might listen." Regular communication sessions began, with Mitchell learning more about Zephyrian culture and their desperate situation. The crystal-based beings were indeed peaceful, having never developed weapons more advanced than farming tools. They had survived the Void Hunters for centuries through hiding and running, but their options were nearly exhausted. "We are the last," the Zephyrian contact, who identified himself as Zinka, explained during one session. 17 worlds have fallen to the shadow ships. We hide in the deep caves of our final refuge, but the hunters circle above. They know we are here. They are only waiting for their amusement to reach its peak before they descend. The conversations revealed crucial intelligence about Void Hunter tactics. They used fear as a weapon, often allowing their victims to see them coming. For months before attacking, they preferred their prey to suffer psychologically before the physical destruction began. "How long before they attack your world?" Chen asked during one communication session. "The patterns suggest perhaps 60 of your days," Zinka replied. "They have been circling for a full season, studying our movements, learning our ways. Soon, they will grow bored with observation and begin the final hunt. 60 days. The human fleet would arrive with only weeks to spare, assuming their calculations were correct and nothing went wrong with their experimental drive systems. The margin for error was almost non-existent. Chen called a fleet-wide meeting to discuss their approach strategy. 15 ships against an unknown number of Void Hunter vessels, with the lives of an entire species hanging in the balance. The odds were daunting, but the crew's resolve was absolute. "We'll arrive in the outer system and conduct reconnaissance first," Chen explained. "We need to understand what we're facing before we commit to battle. Our primary objective is the protection and evacuation of the Zephyrian population. Secondary objective is the elimination of the Void Hunter threat." Captain Torres outlined the military strategy. "Fast insertion, maximum surprise, overwhelming force at the point of contact. We hit them before they can react, and we don't give them time to adapt to our tactics." The final weeks of their journey were spent in intensive preparation. Every crew member knew their role. Every system had been tested and retested. Every weapon had been calibrated for maximum effectiveness. They were as ready as 18 months of travel and training could make them. As the Kepler 442 system grew closer, long-range sensors began detecting signs of the conflict ahead. Energy signatures from unknown ships, debris fields that might once have been cities, and the faint but persistent broadcasts of a species that had never stopped hoping for rescue. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Determination as they prepared to drop out of faster-than-light travel. Around her, the crew worked with quiet efficiency, each person focused on their task but aware of the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. "All ships report ready, Admiral," came the communication from the other vessels in the fleet. Chen took a deep breath and gave the order that would announce humanity's presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. "All ships, prepare for system entry." Remember, we're not just representing Earth today. We're representing the idea that no one should face extinction alone. The human fleet dropped into normal space at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, and immediately their sensors were overwhelmed with contacts. Massive alien ships moved in precise formations around the inner planets, while smaller craft darted between them like predators circling their prey. The Void Hunters had arrived in force, and the final hunt was about to begin. But for the first time in their long history of destruction, they were about to face prey that could fight back. The last stand. The Kepler 442 system spread before them like a chessboard, with pieces already in motion for the final game. Admiral Sarah Chen studied the tactical display with growing concern. 23 Void Hunter vessels orbited the system's planets in perfect formation, their sleek black ships moving with predatory patience around the third world, where the Zephyrians made their last stand. "My God," breathed Dr. Mitchell, as the long-range sensors revealed the scope of destruction. 2 planets showed signs of recent orbital bombardment, their surfaces scarred with geometric patterns that suggested systematic rather than military destruction. They don't just destroy worlds, they turn it into art. Captain Torres examined the enemy ship configurations through the tactical systems. They're not arranged for immediate attack. This looks more like a siege formation. They're toying with their prey. Engineer Harrison's analysis was more disturbing. "Admiral, these ships are massive. The smallest one is twice the size of our heavy cruisers. Their energy signatures suggest technology centuries beyond our current level." Chen absorbed this information without flinching. She had led fleets against impossible odds before, though never quite this impossible. "Dr. Mitchell, can you establish communication with the Zephyrians on the surface?" "Already trying, Admiral. The Void Hunters are jamming most frequencies, but I'm getting through on the harmonic channels we've been using." The response came quickly, filled with musical tones that the translation system rendered as overwhelming joy mixed with desperate hope. "Sky voices, you have truly come. We see your bright ships at the edge of darkness, but you are so few, and the Shadow Fleet is so vast." "Tell them we're here to get them out," Chen ordered. "And tell them to be ready to move quickly when we give the signal." What happened next surprised everyone on the human fleet. The Void Hunter ships, which had been maintaining their patient siege formation, suddenly shifted their positions. Long-range sensors showed them turning toward the human fleet with unmistakable intent. "They know we're here," Torres observed, "and they're reacting faster than expected." Chen's communications officer looked up from his station. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from the largest Void Hunter ship." "Put it through." The voice that emerged from the speakers was cold, mechanical, and utterly without emotion. "Unknown vessels. You have entered a designated hunting preserve. Your presence interferes with our sport. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." Chen had prepared for this moment during the long journey. Her response was deliberately calm and controlled. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Deep Space Fleet. We're here to evacuate the Zephyrians. Stand down your weapons and allow us to proceed." The silence that followed lasted nearly a minute. When the Void Hunter responded, there was something new in the mechanical voice. Curiosity. "You are not Zephyrians. Your technology is primitive, but unknown to us. Why do you interfere in our hunt?" "Because they asked for help and we answered." Another long pause. "Fascinating. A species that travels vast distances to protect others. This presents an interesting variation to our standard procedures. You will be permitted to observe our final hunt before your own destruction." The communication ended abruptly, and the Void Hunter fleet began moving into attack formation around the Zephyrian world. But Chen noticed something crucial. 3 ships had detached from the main group and were moving toward the human fleet. They wanted to study their new prey before beginning the real attack. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Execute Plan Omega. We're going to show them what humans do when someone threatens innocent life." Plan Omega was the most aggressive strategy they had developed during their journey. Instead of trying to match the Void Hunter's technological superiority, they would use humanity's greatest advantage: unpredictability. The human fleet split into 3 groups. Captain Torres led the Marines in fast attack ships directly toward the Zephyrian world, using maximum thrust and erratic flight patterns that would confuse enemy targeting systems. Engineer Harrison took the heavy cruisers on an indirect approach that would bring them into the enemy's flank. Admiral Chen kept the Determination and the Science vessels in reserve, ready to respond to whatever the Void Hunters might try. The 3 approaching Void Hunter ships opened fire when the human vessels came within range. Their weapons were unlike anything in human experience. Beams of energy that seemed to bend space itself, creating gravitational distortions that could crush ships like empty cans. But the Void Hunters had never faced enemies who fought like humans. Instead of maintaining formation and exchanging fire at long range, Torres's Marines scattered in all directions, using random course changes and maximum acceleration to avoid the gravity weapons. 2 human ships were destroyed in the first exchange, but the survivors kept coming. "This is impossible," came a Void Hunter communication on an open channel. "No species fights like this. Where is their coordination? Their strategy?" Torres answered by ramming her ship directly into the largest Void Hunter vessel at full speed. The impact destroyed both ships, but it also created enough confusion for the remaining Marines to slip past the enemy line and reach the Zephyrian world. On the planet's surface, the crystal caves where the Zephyrians had hidden for so long suddenly blazed with activity. The peaceful beings had spent centuries learning to hide, but they had never stopped hoping for rescue. Now, with human ships fighting overhead, they emerged from their refuges for the first time in generations. Dr. Mitchell established direct contact with Zinka, the Zephyrian leader. "We need to evacuate your people immediately. How many are there?" 50,000 of the Crystal Song remain," came the reply. "But we cannot leave our sacred harmony stones. Without them, our people will fade like echoes." "Where are these stones?" "In the deep caverns beneath the crystal spire. The shadow ships have not found them, but we cannot carry them alone." Meanwhile, Harrison's heavy cruisers had engaged the main Void Hunter fleet. His gravity pulse weapons proved surprisingly effective against their advanced technology. The Void Hunter's ships relied on precise gravitational control for both propulsion and weapons. When Harrison's devices disrupted that control, their vessels became confused and disoriented. "Admiral," Harrison reported over the combat channel, "the gravity pulses are working, but I don't think we can hold them off for long. These ships are learning to compensate." Chen made a decision that would define humanity's reputation in the galaxy for centuries to come. "All ships, protect the evacuation at all costs. If we can't save the Zephyrians, then we'll make sure the Void Hunters remember why you don't threaten innocence in front of humans." The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Human ships, massively outgunned and outnumbered, fought with a ferocity that stunned their enemies. When their weapons failed, they rammed enemy vessels. When their ships were crippled, crews abandoned them in escape pods and continued fighting. With personal weapons, when faced with certain death, they broadcast defiant messages that the Void Hunters would never forget. Captain Webb led a suicide run directly at the Void Hunter command ship, broadcasting on all frequencies. This is for every species you've murdered, every world you've destroyed, every voice you've silenced. Remember this moment. Remember that. Humans answered the call. His ship's destruction created a massive explosion that damaged 3 enemy vessels and gave the evacuation ships precious time to work. On the planet below, Marine squads worked with Zephyrian volunteers to move the sacred harmony stones to the evacuation ships. The crystals were enormous, each one requiring a dozen beings to lift, but they sang with frequencies that seemed to strengthen both humans and Zephyrians who heard them. "The stones are aboard," reported the evacuation coordinator. "But we've only got about half the population. We need more time." Time was something they didn't have. The Void Hunter fleet, initially confused by human tactics, was beginning to adapt. Their return fire was becoming more accurate, their formations more responsive to human unpredictability. Admiral Chen made the hardest decision of her career. "All remaining ships form a defensive perimeter around the evacuation vessels. We hold this position until every Zephyrian is safe." The final phase of the battle was a symphony of sacrifice. Human ships positioned themselves between the Void Hunters and the fleeing Zephyrians, absorbing devastating fire while the evacuation continued. One by one, the human vessels were destroyed, but their crews kept fighting until the very end. Dr. Mitchell, working frantically to coordinate between the human fleet and the Zephyrian evacuees, made a discovery that changed everything. "Admiral! The Harmony Stones aren't just sacred artifacts, they're some kind of weapon. The harmonic frequencies can disrupt Void Hunter ship systems." Chen didn't hesitate. "All ships, adjust your communication arrays to broadcast the harmonic frequencies. Let's see how they like their own medicine." The effect was immediate and dramatic. As the Harmony Stone frequencies filled space around the battle, Void Hunter ships began losing power and coordination. Their precise formations fell apart, their weapon systems failed, and their gravity manipulation technology became unreliable. For the first time in their long history of hunting, the Void Hunters experienced fear. Their communications filled with panic as they tried to understand how their prey had turned their own technological superiority against them. "Impossible!" came the transmission from their command ship. "No primitive species should possess such capabilities." Chen's response was broadcast throughout the system. "We're not primitive. We're human, and humans protect those who need protection." The last Zephyrian evacuation ship cleared the planet's atmosphere just as Admiral Chen's flagship, the Determination, suffered critical damage. With her ship dying around her, Chen made one final gesture that would echo through galactic history. She aimed the Determination directly at the largest Void Hunter vessel and activated the ship's self-destruct sequence. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away and completely destroyed the Void Hunter command ship. The surviving Void Hunter vessels, their command structure shattered and their confidence broken, retreated from the system. For the first time in their species' history, they had been defeated by prey that fought back. 6 months later, the surviving human ships limped back toward Earth, carrying 50,000 Zephyrian refugees and a story that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The Zephyrians, grateful beyond words, shared their harmonic technology with their rescuers and helped establish Earth's first interstellar communications network. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now working from a new deep space monitoring station, received the first message from another alien species just 3 weeks after news of the Zephyrian rescue spread through local space. Then another. and another. The galaxy had learned that there was a new power among the stars, a species that traveled impossible distances to answer calls for help, a people who fought not for conquest or resources, but for the simple principle that no one should face extinction alone. They called them the Silent Guardians, the humans who watched from Earth and answered when others cried out in the darkness. The Void Hunters became a cautionary tale told throughout civilized space. Be careful who you threaten, because you never know when the humans might be listening. And in the deep space monitoring stations around Earth, technicians listened too. The Void with new purpose. They were no longer just watching for signs of alien life. They were listening for calls for help, ready to wake the sleeping giant of humanity whenever justice needed to be served among the stars. The age of human isolation was over. The age of the Silent Guardians had begun.